All right, Shalom. I want to start out by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Shema Shah, by Shema Kakwadash. Double honor to the apostle and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the Akim out there pushing the word of sincerity and in truth. Yeah, I just want to let me put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Didn't want to, possibly going to get a call. But anyways, you see the title of the lesson. Be patient with yourself as well as the brotherhood or the Akim. Sometimes in this walk, you'll find yourself being impatient. You'll see that you're suffering, which the word patient means to suffer. Apostle Ball always goes to that point, and brothers that go through hell, you have two types of reactions, to just suffer and endure, or complain, show aggravation, agitation, anxiety, anger, frustration, and that's not the appropriate spirit to really have. Now, don't get it wrong. Throughout the scriptures, we've seen many instances of men in the scriptures expression anger, frustration, and things of that nature, and they always attended to the Lord and asked why, Most High Yahweh, all these things becoming as such unto me, such as Job. Job had great deals of sufferings throughout the course of his life, and he expressed that he was going through the ringer, man. So there's nothing wrong with necessarily expressing yourself, but you can't let things leak over, because this is the flock we have to attend to. Ourselves, we have to continue to keep a certain level of gravity when it comes to this truth. You'll have certain men that, get pissed off and start to exercise lordship, talking down on the Akim, talking to brothers like they're, pieces of shit. And us brothers, we're not the, these are the sheep of the Most High. We've seen plenty of examples of men that, got puffed up and high-minded and felt like they was, some spiritual guru, and men that was coming up under their leadership, being young and only having a few points of available knowledge, because they're coming into the truth. You see certain men that are, crack the whip unnecessarily, because they might be projecting their frustrations of what they've been dealing with in the world, or they might just be pure assholes, bad attitude, thinking that, that having that uppity, feeling like you're underling, and that spirit can shift. You can be in the hot seat, and the brother that had got offended, the Lord might vindicate that brother. Scripture speak about how the prayers of the Lord goes into the Lord of Sabaoth. So the Lord hears the wailing of the righteous. Now the scripture speak about offenses must come, and if it's predicated upon righteousness, you can say certain stuff to the brothers and reprove, rebuke. It's all throughout the scriptures, within the merits of this truth. But if you just lashing out or just showing frustrations unnecessarily, or if you on that oil or that drink, and next thing you know, you turn into a goddamn werewolf, and everybody in your presence you want to cuss out. That ain't right, man. You'll see examples of that. I've heard examples of that. A man get on that drink, the next thing you know, he looking at everybody around him like some boxing bags, man. Like he thinks he's a nail and everybody around him is a hammer, and he just starts striking. And it's one thing if it's in the spirit, but the scriptures even tell you when you're in the midst of wine, you're not supposed to really be cussing everybody out, because you're doing stuff really through unsoberly. You should be having sober thoughts, and it's a time and place, So that's why it tells you that throughout the book of Sirach, and it, to rebuke not in the midst of wine. So for brothers, just want to say, through the Spirit. I'm gonna get some scriptures because patience is written throughout, but be patient with yourself. We're all works in progress. Some brothers need a little bit more work than other brothers. Some brothers is very rough around the edges. Some brothers have learning curves. We all as men come into this truth through different shapes and sizes, for lack of a better example. We all different, although we are the same, we worship Yahweh Shema Shai, but some brothers, they learn slowly. Some brothers have a little bit of inadequacies, and you can't get overly flustered. You got to just deal, and we all know examples of our day one. Every brother had a day one in this truth. Every brother had a moment where they felt inadequate. They had to ask questions and get the basic premises of this knowledge to grow upon, and eventually we got it, and the Lord showed patience. The Lord opened our minds to receive this information through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai, through his power, so you have to express that same sentiment to men that's under you, can't, like I said, be as it is written, a lion, so this is Psalms 37:7. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not because of him who prospereth in his way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. Yeah, and some individuals will see the prosperity of the wicked, see these niggas living it up, and then they'll look around and say, man, brothers, man, we ain't doing half the shit. We ain't making half the type of money. We not in the world. We're not, the Lord has our crash course to salvation is on we're on a whole nother highway. These people, the scriptures speak about the world loving its own, and you'll see brothers get resentment. Some brothers is constantly catching hell through this walk. And I'm not saying that it's some brothers is self-inflicted, or they sometimes do create scenarios, unnecessary scenarios through youthfulness, which the scriptures speak about, fleeing that youthful mentality, that youthful lust, and you gotta of course stay on top of brothers with that, Now if a man is sincere, he really truly wants to get it, but he just doesn't have the full dynamics of this truth to deal. You still have to work out the kinks, and that's been a difficult thing with certain men in this walk. Some brothers, it comes easier than others, but nonetheless, this truth is all about developing character, developing a certain mentality, for brothers to, get it, and we ain't holding heads. This ain't no thing where we're gonna treat you like a child, If you look at the greats, like Kobe Bryant, for instance, he had a certain mentality where he had high expectations for his team. Anybody that was around him, he wanted them to bring out their A game, and he would show Michael Jordan. They would show, and a lot of them, like Michael Jordan, he had a lot of character flaws. That nigga wasn't righteous. But the point that I'm making is these individuals had high expectations, and they pushed their men. And some men don't like being pushed. They get offended when you got to push them, But because what? Comfort is the enemy. Some men get too comfortable in this truth. This truth isn't about comfort. This truth ain't, all right, I'm in the square, I could duck off in the cavern, AKA the room. I got me I'm in a pretty decent situation. So I ain't got to really strive, or I ain't really got to work as aggressively as I once did, and that comes with that's a little bit selfish, because it's still, the elected isn't sealed. Our course, like I said before, and our walk is shrouded in hardships, Matter of fact, since I said that with hardships, it's about enduring and suffering, you know, as it is written with the 2 Timothy 2:3. Oh, not 1 Timothy 2:3. Thou therefore. Oh, excuse me. That's why I'm not even in Timothy. I'm in Thessalonians. Excuse me. 2 Timothy 2:3. Thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Hamashiach. Yeah. So the epitome of endurance means to make hard. When you go into the origin of Doro, to make hard. So constant and enduring will make you stronger and tougher, mentally durable, and that's part of being patient. Just sitting down. The scripture says to be still and know that I am the Lord, not whining. The scripture says lift up the feeble knees, and we've seen examples of men that were impatient. Judas Iscariot was a man that started to be impatient with himself, and he got impatient with the leadership, because even that's another thing too. Being too impatient with your leadership. Some brothers, even leaders come in different shapes and sizes. You have it's levels to leaders. Every brother's not going to be no elder, apostle tahar, which we all covet. The scripture says covet to prophesy, but that's a special spirit. If you look at certain men, you can't compare, some of these brothers, camp heads. You can't compare, but them brothers, man, they ain't doing what these brothers doing over on this side. Now, if it's certain things that you can incorporate from different brothers, that's the optimistic side of it. All right, these brothers doing this, maybe we should do this. From a enthusiastic point, not no hating ass nigga point. Oh, they doing this, jealousy and envy. These brothers ain't really doing this. These brothers ain't got it like these brothers over there. These brothers got, corporate jobs. These brothers eating good every, that's, and it, man, we going through hell over here, man. Well, how about you get in the field and make change? All right. If you believe in the truth and you believe in yourself through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai, work. The scriptures speak about putting in, effort, and some men, they lose the energy. They lose the breath to put in, and they get in that slumber, and they get tired, and they get disenchanted, and some men burn out early. And that's another thing too. You got to know how to keep that fever, that fervor, keep striking when the iron's hot and not letting up off the gas, because the moment you get into those quarters of rest and start getting into that slumber, you're gonna start to feel it, and then on top of that, the compounded hell, then you start to get in your mind and you look around and you see, you start to harp on the negative, and then you play the blame game, pointing the finger at everybody around you, like they haven't been in your corner, like brothers haven't been, attending to your spirit and trying to help you, administer unto you and teach you and give you the appropriate wisdom to make it to the kingdom of heaven. Some brothers, all of us, we gave our lives to this truth, so you got to look at brothers as precious gems of Yahweh Shema Shai till they truly show you otherwise, and you could condemn a brother, have a spirit of putting that man to damnation like he's less than, and the Most High might vindicate him, then put your ass in a hot seat. I've seen examples of that, and that's why I try to, be very patient with myself and brothers around me, and apologetic if necessary, or if it's a necessary offense, I'm not going to apologize, because it was something that was predicated upon truth. And we not finna be, treat brothers like we goddamn women, afraid to say certain things to certain brothers that's not really trying to get the ball rolling or got that lackluster mentality. That's not what this lesson is predicated upon. It's upon points of, you just being unnecessarily an asshole and not being patient with the Akim. Matter of fact, I love this scripture, so I'm gonna get it. I think it's Sirach 11:11. There is one. Let's see. Let's get to Sirach. Haven't went through this in a while, so that's why Yep. Sirach 11:11. There is one that laboreth and taketh pains and maketh haste, and so much the more behind. Again, there is another that is slow and have need of help, wanting ability. Yeah, so you got one man that might run, and he might have a good momentum in his truth, and then next thing you know, he by and by he's still behind, and then on the flip side, you might have a brother that started off extremely slow. He might be inadequate. He might have what they call speech impediments. He can't read. He stumbles over words, that some men find humorously. And the spirit of Yahweh Shem Shai is with that man, So that's why you really got to be extremely careful on how you deal with brothers, because you don't know who we all don't know necessarily who is until everything is revealed, until the end all, until the curtains is lifted. We will just have full understanding. But right now, we just have to go through what we go through and look at brothers and work with brothers. It says wanting ability and full of poverty. Yeah, bank account. He's always going through it. Like the scripture speak about, even a poor man, nobody regarded, but he saved that city. He don't have the best threads. The women ain't leaping on him when he come outside. He's just living a moderate life. Might be a minimalist. Might got a Honda Accord or a 99, 98 Corolla. But Yahweh Shema Shai is with that man. And those are the men some people look down on. The society looks down on. Like, man, why he ain't got it like these? He ain't in a big chain like women. That's the mentality of women, man. Women go they live their lives. Hypergamy is the term. Looking for the best candidate to leap on, like them leapfrog, or the latch on like a koala bear, like a koala cub. That's how women think. The Lord don't think like that, man. And you have certain men like that in the truth. See a man, with the big muscles and he might be an eloquent speaker. Then they like, man, I'm gonna call him. I know. But then you might have a brother, sincere. He still need work, and you could work with him, but you would rather not work with him because he might not have the get up that you look for. That's why you can't look through fleshly lenses, man. And I've always been like that in my life. Even in school, I never was the person to just flock to the popular crowd, the big, tall basketball niggas. Or if I played basketball, that'd be one thing. It's all about the crowd but just inorganically just running, trying to hang with the football niggas or the basketball guys, or, because I know that they might get scouted, and they might actually make it. So let me just try to be friends, buddy with them. That's not organic. Now, I had friends that people would say popular, and I had friends that was considered to some as lames, but nonetheless, I seen the genuineness of those individuals, and I didn't allow society's perception to I'll say make me jaded, or I'm trying to give the appropriate throw off my perception of that individual. Even with women, women is just go around and just talk shit about a woman because she don't have the best body. But you might like, man, but I like this girl, man. This girl actually is doing good for me. And it's not about her fucking being seen by you assholes. But then as soon as you get her and you get her dolled up, or you get her looking good, or you start, popping her, and you putting a little bit of value and investing. Now you got the big bug-eyed niggas, you know, looking at her like she like now she's qualified. So this world is hypocritical, and we can't live according to the hypocrisies of this world. We have to live upon and build our minds upon the merits of Yahweh Shem Al Shai, and keep with the Lord's, keep the headspace that Yahweh Shai kept. Yahweh Shai chose the poor. When the Lord came, he didn't choose the athlete gladiator niggas. If you see that, really the disciples, they weren't that some of them vary through age. I think it was, scholars can go into it. Like, for instance, you had I think it was James and John. Their fathers were fishermen. Now their age range could have varied, but nonetheless, they wasn't. If from that information alone, you see that, all right, they're working under their father. Their father's one of they could have been wealthy, but nonetheless, you see that they were workers. They had middle class or poverty-based living, might have minimal income, living off the land, peasants, as people would say. They weren't the most shabby individuals living in the, like the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They didn't have the best illustrious garments, like IUIC, like the IUIC, with illustrious garments and the cape flapping all over the place. The men in the scriptures, even when you watch these ancient biblical movies, you see that the men were, they didn't really have the most, man. Their dwelling quarters wasn't radiant. They didn't have the $7.5 million mansion. Yeah, I want him to be one of the disciples. Nah, the Lord didn't see with man's eyes. He knew that those men were sincere, and they were the most qualified in that realm through the lenses of humility and belief. And he chose those men specifically, and it showed throughout that walk that they all, except the son of perdition, were the best qualified men to work. And he was extremely patient with them. You see, he had to cuss them out. Peter, those men were and they someone was overly zealous. They was ready to take down the Romans then. With Yahweh Shai, what he said with James and John about the sons of Zebedee, called them the sons of thunder, because they was ready to get busy just at that said time, but it wasn't the time, so I just say all that just to say, keep a sober mentality when it comes to the Akim. Pray for the brothers, pray for the apostles, pray for the elders, pray for yourself. Don't beat yourself down, because I'm speaking of this, reflecting, because I'll get in that mode and I'll get agitated and I get aggravated with myself, and then I feel like I'm not worthy, and I know we all can echo that one, through one way or another, from past sins, before the truth, or even things that you've done, and you, like Paul said, "Oh wretched man that I am," So I just want to speak on that for brothers, man. Just keep a spirit of suffering, love the brothers. Always keep a high head with the Akim, because we all are a work in progress, And this is the optimism. I've seen so many examples, even certain brothers, you wouldn't even think that they would shape up to be as bad as the dudes that they are now, but they wax old in their work. They work with their head down, and the Most High gave them a spiritual boost, man. And it was the ones that most people would look down on. And like, yeah, and they'll have examples. Yeah, so and so, they talk down on me. I've heard examples like, damn, he did that. Yeah, talking to me like I'm a piece of shit. And next thing you know, the Lord get him out of there and raise that brother up, and he's a head or master teacher, or so on and so forth. So with that, I'm gonna end it by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh by Shem Shai, by Shem Kodash. Double honor to the apostle and elders, great millstone. Shalom, Akim.